You know, there's something deeply ironic about the way we approach money in modern life. We're taught from a young age to follow certain rules, to adopt certain habits, to live in certain ways that are supposed to lead us to financial stability and success. Our parents pass down their wisdom, our schools teach us the basics, society reinforces particular patterns of behavior, and we internalize these lessons as universal truths. We tell ourselves we're doing the right thing, making the smart choices, being responsible adults, and yet, despite all our good intentions and disciplined efforts, many of us find ourselves stuck in the same financial position year after year, watching our dreams of freedom and abundance slip further away. We work hard, we sacrifice, we follow the rules, but somehow the prosperity we've been promised never quite materializes. The truth is, some of the habits we've been told are good for us, habits we've adopted without question because they seem so obviously correct, are actually the very things keeping us trapped in cycles of scarcity and limitation. These aren't obviously bad habits like reckless spending or ignoring bills. No, these are the respectable habits, the ones that make us feel virtuous and responsible, the ones that earn us nods of approval from financial advisors and family members alike. But beneath their seemingly solid surface lies a subtle trap, a hidden cost that we don't recognize until we've already paid it many times over. Today, we're going to challenge some deeply held assumptions about money and success. We're going to look at 7 habits that appear good on the surface, but may actually be sabotaging your financial future. Some of these might surprise you. Some might even make you uncomfortable. But if you're willing to question what you've always believed, if you're ready to see these patterns with fresh eyes, you might just discover the breakthrough you've been searching for. This isn't about becoming reckless or irresponsible with money. It's about recognizing that wisdom isn't always conventional and that sometimes the path to true prosperity requires us to think differently than everyone else around us. Before we dive deep into these 7 habits, I want to take just a moment to connect with you. I'm genuinely curious. Where in the world are you watching this from right now? Drop a comment below and let me know your city or country. It's incredible to see how this community spans continents and cultures, all of us here seeking wisdom and trying to build better lives. And if you're finding value in this content, if these conversations are making you think differently about your life and your choices, I want to personally invite you to subscribe to this channel. I don't say this lightly or as some empty routine. Your subscription genuinely matters because it tells me that this message is resonating, that we're building something meaningful together. Every subscriber represents someone who's chosen to invest in wisdom, in growth, in seeing the world through a clearer lens. And for those of you who want to go deeper, who want to be part of the inner circle of this community, consider becoming a channel member. You'll get early access to videos before anyone else sees them. You'll be supporting the creation of more content like this. And you'll be joining a group of people who are truly committed to transformation. There's something powerful about being part of a community that spans the globe, all of us learning and growing together, supporting each other's journey toward wisdom and abundance. All right, let's get into it. The first habit that might be keeping you broke is saving too conservatively. Now I know what you're thinking. How can saving money be a bad thing? Isn't that the foundation of all financial advice? Shouldn't we all be putting money away for the future, building our emergency funds, being prudent and responsible? And yes, of course, having savings is important. Having a safety net matters, but here's what most people don't realize. There's a massive difference between saving wisely and saving fearfully. And in our culture, we've been conditioned to save in ways that actually erode our wealth over time, while making us feel virtuous about it. Think about the traditional savings account. Your bank encourages you to keep your money there. maybe offering you 0.5% interest if you're lucky, 1% if they're feeling generous. Meanwhile, inflation is running at 3, 4, 5% or more. Every year, the money sitting in that account loses purchasing power. You think you're being responsible, but you're actually getting poorer in real terms. The dollars you save today will buy less tomorrow, and even less the day after that. Your discipline is being punished by invisible forces you probably don't even think about. And here's the deeper issue. When we save too conservatively, we're operating from a mindset of scarcity and fear rather than abundance and opportunity. We're so focused on protecting what we have that we can't see the potential for growth. We're so terrified of loss that we guarantee a slow, steady decline instead. It's like burying a talent in the ground rather than putting it to work. The wealthy understand something that most people miss entirely. Money is a tool, not a trophy. It's meant to be deployed strategically, to generate returns, to create opportunities, to work for you while you sleep. They don't just save money, they invest it in assets that appreciate over time, in businesses that generate income, in skills and knowledge that increase their earning potential. They understand that true financial security doesn't come from having a big pile of cash sitting still. It comes from having multiple streams of income and assets that grow faster than inflation. Now, I'm not suggesting you should be reckless or invest in things you don't understand. What I'm saying is that if all you're doing is tucking money away in a traditional savings account and feeling good about it, you're playing a losing game. You need to educate yourself about different types of investments, about how inflation works, about the difference between saving and building wealth. You need to shift from a defensive posture to a strategic one. Yes, have an emergency fund in liquid, accessible form. That's wise. But beyond that basic safety net, your money should be working for you, not just sitting there, slowly losing value. The habit of conservative saving often comes from a well-meaning place, from parents or grandparents who lived through different economic times, when a savings account actually paid meaningful interest and inflation was lower. They were doing what made sense in their context, and they passed those lessons down to you with love. But the rules have changed. The economy is different. And if you keep playing by outdated rules, you'll keep getting outdated results. This isn't about abandoning caution or prudence. It's about updating your strategy to match the reality of the world you actually live in. It's about being willing to learn new approaches and challenge old assumptions. The most financially successful people aren't the most conservative savers. They're the most strategic investors. There's a profound difference, and recognizing it might be the first step toward actual prosperity rather than just the illusion of security. The second habit that's likely keeping you broke is buying things just because they're on sale. This one is particularly insidious because it disguises itself as smart financial behavior. We love a good deal, don't we? There's something deeply satisfying about seeing that clearance tag, that 50% off sticker, that buy one get one free offer. We feel like we're winning, like we're being savvy consumers, like we're getting more value for our money. Retailers know this about us, and they exploit it mercilessly. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Buying something you don't need, even at a massive discount, isn't saving money. It's spending money. And more than that, it's spending money on things that don't add genuine value to your life, things that clutter your space and your mind, things that represent resources flowing out rather than building up. Every dollar you spend on a discounted item you didn't really need is a dollar that can't be invested in something that actually matters. Let me paint you a picture. You walk into a store with no particular need or plan. You're just browsing, passing time, maybe feeling a little bored or stressed, and then you see it. A rack of shirts marked down 70%. Normally $40 each, now just $12. What a steal. You don't really need new shirts. Your closet is already full. But at this price, how can you pass it up? You'd be losing money by not buying them, right? So you grab 3 shirts, maybe 4. You feel great about your shrewd shopping as you check out. You've saved over $100, except you haven't saved anything. You've spent $40 or $50 on items that you didn't need and quite possibly will rarely or never wear. Those shirts will hang in your closet, tags still attached for months or years, a constant reminder of a false economy. That $50 could have been invested. It could have been put toward a course that would increase your skills and earning potential. It could have been used to buy books that would expand your knowledge. It could have been saved for an opportunity that genuinely matters. But instead, it's trapped in fabric in your closet, slowly depreciating until you eventually donate the shirts, unworn, feeling vaguely guilty about the waste. This pattern repeats across every area of consumption. Kitchen gadgets you'll use once, electronics that seem like must-haves until they're collecting dust. Subscription services you sign up for because they're cheap monthly, but that add up to hundreds annually for things you barely use. Books you buy on impulse during a sale but never read. Clothes that seem like bargains but don't actually fit your style or body well. All of it justified by the discount, by the deal, by the sense that you're being financially responsible by seeking value. But value isn't about getting a low price. Value is about getting something that genuinely improves your life relative to what you paid for it. $100 item that you use daily for years and that brings you joy or utility is far more valuable than a $10 item that sits unused. The wealthy understand this intuitively. They don't buy things just because they're on sale. They buy things that align with their goals, that serve a clear purpose, that add genuine value to their lives. They're willing to pay full price for quality items they'll actually use, rather than buying cheap items they don't need just because the price is attractive. They see through the marketing tricks and the psychological manipulation that retailers use to trigger impulse purchases. Here's a practice that can transform your relationship with spending. Before buying anything, especially something on sale, pause and ask yourself 3 questions. First, would I buy this at full price? If the only reason you're considering it is the discount, that's a red flag. Second, where will this fit in my life? If you can't clearly envision how you'll use it and where it will go, you probably don't need it. Third, what else could I do with this money? Could it be invested? Could it go toward a goal that really matters to you? Could it buy something you need more? These questions create space between impulse and action, and in that space, wisdom can emerge. The habit of buying things just because they're on sale is deeply rooted in our psychology. We're wired to respond to scarcity and to perceive deals as wins. But in our modern consumer culture, sales aren't actually scarce. There's always another deal, another discount, another opportunity to spend money we don't have on things we don't need. Breaking this habit requires awareness and intentionality. It requires recognizing that your financial well-being isn't built on accumulating discounted stuff. It's built on making strategic choices about how your resources are deployed. Every purchase is a vote for a particular kind of life. Are you voting for clutter and distraction, or for focus and genuine value? The answer to that question might determine whether you stay broke or start building real wealth. The third habit keeping you broke is trying to look successful before you actually are. This one cuts deep because it's tied to our identity and how we want to be perceived by others. We live in an image-driven culture where appearances often matter more than reality, where success is measured by visible symbols rather than actual substance. Social media has amplified this tendency to an almost unbearable degree. We scroll through feeds full of designer bags, exotic vacations, luxury cars, and immaculate homes, and we feel the pressure to keep up, to present ourselves as equally successful, equally put together, equally prosperous. And so we spend money we don't have on things we don't need to impress people we don't even like. We finance luxury cars with monthly payments that consume a huge portion of our income. We buy designer clothes and accessories on credit cards. We eat at expensive restaurants and post about it online. We rent apartments in prestigious neighborhoods that stretch our budget to the breaking point. We take vacations we can't afford and finance them with debt. We do all of this because we've bought into the lie that looking successful is the same as being successful, that the appearance of wealth will somehow translate into actual wealth, that if we dress the part and play the part, the reality will follow. But it doesn't work that way. In fact, it works exactly the opposite. The more you spend on looking successful, the less likely you are to become actually successful. Every dollar that goes toward maintaining an image is a dollar that isn't building your actual financial foundation. Every choice to prioritize appearance over reality moves you further from genuine prosperity and deeper into a trap of perpetual brokenness disguised by a shiny exterior. There's a fascinating phenomenon that researchers have identified. Truly wealthy people with genuine financial security and abundance, often don't look wealthy at all. They drive modest cars, sometimes older models that are fully paid off. They wear simple, durable clothing rather than flashy designer brands. They live in nice, but not ostentatious homes. They're not trying to prove anything to anyone because they don't need to. Their wealth is real, not performed. Meanwhile, many people who look extremely successful, who project an image of affluence and prosperity, are actually drowning in debt, living paycheck to paycheck despite high incomes, trapped on a treadmill of consumption that they can never escape because they're too busy maintaining the illusion to build the reality. Think about it this way. Imagine two people, both earning the same income. Person A spends heavily on a luxury car, a prestigious address, designer clothes, expensive dinners, and regular lavish vacations. They look successful. Their social media is enviable. But at the end of each month, they have nothing left, or worse, they've added to their debt. They're not building wealth, they're building an image. Person B drives a reliable used car, lives in a modest neighborhood, buys quality clothes that last but aren't branded, cooks at home most of the time, takes occasional affordable trips, and invests the difference. They don't look particularly impressive. Their social media is pretty ordinary, but every month they're building actual wealth, accumulating investments, creating options and freedom for their future. Fast forward 10 years. Person A is still broke, still trapped in the same cycle, maybe earning more but spending even more to maintain their image. Person B has substantial investments, options, freedom, and genuine financial security. Who made the wiser choice? The answer is obvious when we step back and look at it objectively. But in the moment, when we're feeling the social pressure and the emotional pull of wanting to be perceived as successful, the right choice is much harder to make. Here's a hard truth. The people whose opinions you're trying to influence with your appearance probably aren't thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. They're too busy worrying about how they appear to you. Everyone is so consumed with their own image that they barely notice yours, except in the most superficial ways. And those superficial judgments are worthless. They don't pay your bills. They don't build your future. They don't create genuine opportunities. In fact, projecting an image of success can actually close doors because people assume you don't need help, don't need opportunities, don't need connections. Meanwhile, being authentic about where you actually are in your journey can open doors, create real relationships, and lead to genuine opportunities. Breaking this habit requires a fundamental shift in how you define success and how you relate to other people's opinions. You have to become willing to look ordinary, even unsuccessful by conventional standards, for a season while you build something real beneath the surface. You have to develop the confidence to not care what people think about your car or your clothes or your apartment. You have to recognize that true success is measured in freedom, in options, in security, in the ability to make choices based on what you actually want, rather than what you think will impress others. This doesn't mean you should never enjoy nice things or that there's virtue in deprivation. Once you've built genuine wealth, once you have the financial foundation to support it without sacrificing your future, then by all means, enjoy the fruits of your labor. Buy the nice car if it brings you joy. Wear the designer clothes if they make you feel good. Take the amazing vacations if they enrich your life. But do it from a position of actual abundance, not from a desperate need to appear abundant while secretly broke. Do it as an expression of success, not as a substitute for it. The order matters enormously. Build first, display later. Plant the seeds, tend the garden, wait for the harvest, and then enjoy the feast. Don't pretend to feast while your seeds lie unplanted and your future unfed. The fourth habit that's keeping you broke is loyalty to companies that aren't loyal to you. This one is subtle, but incredibly costly over time. We develop relationships with brands, with service providers, with companies, and we stick with them out of habit, convenience, or a misguided sense of loyalty. We've been with the same bank for 20 years. We've used the same cell phone provider since we got our first phone. We've stayed with the same insurance company, same cable company, same credit card, same everything, even as their prices creep up and their service quality degrades. We tell ourselves that switching is too much hassle, that we don't want to deal with the paperwork or the phone calls or the learning curve of a new system. But here's what we're not calculating: the cost of our misplaced loyalty. Companies know that customers have inertia. They know that most people won't switch, even when they're getting a bad deal. So they save their best offers, their best rates, their best service for new customers, people they're trying to attract, while slowly increasing prices and reducing benefits for existing customers who they know are unlikely to leave. It's a deliberate strategy, and it costs you money every single month. Let's look at some numbers. Your cell phone bill might be $80 a month with your longtime provider. But a competitor is offering equivalent or better service for $50 a month to new customers. You could switch and save $30 monthly, which is $360 per year, which is over $3,500 over 10 years. But you don't switch because you've been with your company forever, because switching seems complicated, because you'd have to transfer your number and set up a new account. So you lose $3,500 over the next decade for the sake of avoiding a 1-hour task. That's an effective hourly rate of negative $3,500 for your loyalty. The same pattern plays out across every area of service. Your car insurance might be costing you $200 a month, but if you shopped around, you might find equivalent coverage for $140. That's $60 a month, $720 per year, over $7,000 in a decade. Your cable and internet bundle might be running you $150 a month when a competitor would charge $90 for the same thing. Your credit card might have a high interest rate and no rewards when there are options with no annual fee and significant cash back on every purchase. Your bank might charge you monthly fees and give you almost no interest on your savings when there are online banks with no fees and much higher rates. Your subscription services might have raised their prices over the years when equivalent alternatives exist at lower cost. Across all these areas combined, the typical household is probably overpaying by $200 to $500 per month, which is $2,400 to $6,000 per year, which is $24,000 to $60,000 over a decade. That's not a trivial amount. For many people, that's the difference between being broke and having a solid financial foundation. That's the cost of the car they're making payments on. That's the emergency fund they don't have. That's the investment portfolio that never got started. all sacrificed on the altar of misplaced loyalty and inertia. Now, companies will try to keep you when you attempt to leave. They'll suddenly discover that they can offer you a better rate, a special loyalty discount, an upgraded service package. Funny how that option wasn't available until you threatened to walk away, isn't it? This tells you everything you need to know about how they view you, as a resource to be exploited unless you demonstrate that you're willing to leave. So here's a practice that can save you thousands. Once a year, dedicate a day to shopping your major services. Look at competitors for your insurance, your phone plan, your internet, your banking, your subscriptions, everything that represents a recurring cost. Research what's available. Call and ask for quotes. Don't let the current provider know you're looking at first, because you want to see what the market actually offers, not what they're willing to give you to prevent you from leaving. Once you have competitive quotes in hand, then you can go to your current providers and tell them you're considering switching and why. Give them a chance to match or beat the competition. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. If they do, and the offer is genuinely competitive, great. You've saved money without the hassle of switching. If they don't, then actually follow through and switch. Don't make empty threats. If you say you'll leave and then don't, you've shown them that your talk of leaving is meaningless and they'll never take you seriously. This annual audit might take you 4 to 8 hours total. Let's say it saves you $3,000 per year on average, which is conservative. That's an effective hourly rate of $375 to $750 for your time. There's probably nothing else you can do that will earn you money at that rate. And these savings compound over time, not just in the immediate dollars, but in the opportunity to invest those savings and let them grow. The habit of misplaced corporate loyalty is rooted in a worldview that no longer matches reality. There was a time when companies valued long-term customers, when loyalty was reciprocal, when staying with a company for decades meant something. That time is largely gone. In modern corporate culture, loyalty flows one direction only, from customers to companies, not the other way around. Companies will drop you, raise your rates, cut your benefits, or change your terms without hesitation if it serves their bottom line. They owe you nothing beyond the service you're currently paying for. So you owe them nothing beyond fair payment for services rendered. If someone else offers you a better deal, you have every right and reason to take it. This isn't about being disloyal or mercenary. It's about being a good steward of your own resources, about recognizing that in a market economy, you have options and you should exercise them. The companies certainly exercise their options to maximize their profit. You should exercise yours to maximize your value. Breaking this habit is simple in concept, but requires overcoming inertia. You have to be willing to do the work of shopping around, comparing options, making phone calls, filling out forms, switching accounts. It's boring work, admittedly. It's not exciting. But it's some of the highest return work you can do in terms of your financial well-being. A few hours of tedious tasks can save you thousands of dollars, and those thousands of dollars can change your trajectory. The fifth habit that's keeping you broke is doing everything yourself to save money. This seems counterintuitive at first, doesn't it? Shouldn't we be self-reliant? Isn't DIY a good way to cut costs and build skills? And yes, in certain contexts, doing things yourself makes perfect sense. But what most people don't understand is that their time has value, and when you spend time doing low-value tasks just to save a small amount of money, you're actually making yourself poorer. You're preventing yourself from focusing on the high-value activities that could actually increase your income and build your wealth. Let me give you an example. You spend 4 hours on a Saturday mowing your lawn, trimming bushes, and doing yard work, saving the $60 it would cost to hire a lawn service. In isolation, this seems smart. You saved $60. But let's examine the actual economics. Those 4 hours could have been spent developing a skill that increases your earning potential, working on a side business, creating something of value, building relationships that lead to opportunities, or simply resting and recharging so you can be more effective in your primary work. If you earn $30 an hour at your job, those 4 hours of your time are worth $120 in opportunity cost. You saved $60 but lost $120 in potential earnings or value creation. Your net negative $60, but you feel virtuous because you saved money. This pattern repeats across countless areas. You spend 2 hours changing your own oil to save $25. You spend 6 hours building furniture from scratch to save $100. You spend 3 hours doing your own taxes to save the cost of an accountant. You spend hours clipping coupons and driving to multiple stores to save $15 on groceries. You spend half a day trying to fix your computer to avoid paying a technician. In each case, you're making a trade, your time for money saved. And in each case, you need to honestly calculate whether that trade makes sense. What is your time actually worth? Not just in terms of your current hourly wage, but in terms of what you could be doing with that time to build toward the future. Here's a framework that successful people use. They calculate their effective hourly rate, what they need to earn per hour to reach their financial goals, and then they ruthlessly outsource or eliminate anything that doesn't justify that rate. If your target rate is $50 per hour and a task would take you 3 hours and save you $75, it's not worth your time. You should pay someone else to do it and spend those 3 hours on something that generates more than $75 of value. This doesn't mean you should outsource everything or that you should never do tasks yourself. There are legitimate reasons to do things yourself beyond pure economics. Maybe you enjoy lawn work and find it meditative. Maybe building furniture is a creative outlet that brings you joy. Maybe you like the satisfaction of fixing your own car. If a task provides intrinsic value beyond the money saved, then by all means, do it yourself. But be honest about why you're doing it. If you're doing it purely to save money and you don't enjoy it, and the time could be better spent elsewhere, then you're making a false economy. You're trading dollars for pennies and feeling good about it because the pennies are visible and the dollars are invisible. The wealthy understand this intuitively. They value their time appropriately and they protect it jealously. They hire people to handle routine tasks, maintenance, logistics, anything that doesn't require their specific expertise or that they don't genuinely want to do. This frees their time and mental energy for high-leverage activities, strategy, relationship building, skill development, creative work, deal-making, rest and recovery. They understand that making $100,000 a year and spending $20,000 on services that free your time is better than making $100,000 and spending nothing on services but being exhausted, stressed, and unable to focus on opportunities that could increase your income to $150,000 or $200,000. The net result is higher, even though the gross expenses are greater. Now, I understand that if you're currently living paycheck to paycheck, this advice might seem impossible to implement. How can you afford to hire services when you can barely afford to survive? This is a legitimate concern. But even in tight financial situations, there's usually some version of this principle that can apply. Maybe you can't afford to outsource everything, but you can choose to focus your limited time on your highest value activities. Maybe you can't hire a cleaning service, but you can stop spending hours on elaborate DIY projects that save trivial amounts. Maybe you can't pay for a tax professional, but you can stop driving all over town to save $3 on groceries and use that time to learn a skill that could increase your income. The principle scales to any income level, Value your time, protect your energy, focus on leverage, and be willing to pay for things that free you to create more value than they cost. There's also a psychological component here that's worth examining. Sometimes we do everything ourselves, not because it makes financial sense, but because we have limiting beliefs about money and worth. We don't feel we deserve to pay for services. We feel guilty spending money on convenience. We've internalized the message that struggling and doing everything the hard way is virtuous. We pride ourselves on our self-sufficiency, even when that self-sufficiency is costing us dearly. Breaking this habit requires challenging those beliefs, recognizing that there's no virtue in unnecessary struggle, and understanding that paying for services isn't laziness or extravagance when it frees you to create more value. It's strategic. It's intelligent allocation of resources. It's how wealth is built. So take an honest look at how you spend your time. Identify the tasks you're doing purely to save small amounts of money. Calculate the actual cost in terms of opportunity and energy. And then make conscious decisions about what's worth your time and what isn't. Redirect the time you reclaim toward activities that actually move the needle on your financial situation. That's how you break free from the trap of false economy and start building real wealth. The sixth habit keeping you broke is waiting until you can afford perfection to start. This is one of the most paralyzing and costly habits on this entire list, and yet it's one we rarely recognize in ourselves. We have dreams, ambitions, ideas for how we could improve our lives or increase our income, but we don't act on them because the conditions aren't perfect yet. We want to start a business, but we don't have enough saved to do it properly, so we wait. We want to invest, but we don't have enough knowledge or confidence or capital to do it right, so we delay. We want to get in shape, but we can't afford a gym membership or a personal trainer or the perfect diet plan, so we postpone. We want to learn a new skill, but we don't have time to do it thoroughly, so we put it off. We want to make a change, but we're waiting for the right moment, the perfect circumstances, the ideal situation. And while we wait for perfection, life passes us by and opportunities evaporate. Here's what we don't realize. Perfect conditions never come. There will never be a moment when you have enough money, enough time, enough knowledge, enough confidence, enough of everything to guarantee success. If you wait for that moment, you'll wait forever. The people who actually build wealth and create success don't wait for perfect conditions. They start with what they have, where they are, and they figure it out as they go. They embrace imperfection, iteration, and learning through doing. They understand that starting small and imperfectly is infinitely better than not starting at all. Let's say you want to start a side business. You have an idea, maybe for freelancing in your area of expertise, or selling products online, or offering a service, but you think you need a business plan, a logo, a website, business cards, maybe some inventory or equipment, an LLC, business insurance, and on. So you start pricing it all out, and you realize it would cost several $1,000s to do it right, money you don't have. So you abandon the idea or put it on hold indefinitely, waiting until you can afford to launch properly. Meanwhile, someone else with the same idea, but less concern about perfection, starts immediately with nothing but a social media account, maybe a free website builder, and pure hustle. They offer their service or product without all the polish and infrastructure. They make mistakes, they learn, they adjust. Within a few months, they're generating income. Within a year, they've refined their offering and built a real business. Within 2 years, they're earning more from this side business than their main job. You're still in the same place, still waiting for perfect conditions, still broke, having missed 2 years of opportunity, learning and income because you wanted to start perfectly instead of starting practically. Or let's say you want to invest, but you feel like you don't know enough. So you think you should take courses, read a dozen books, maybe get certified in financial planning before you start putting money into the market. So you put it off while you study. Study is good, learning is valuable, but while you're preparing to invest someday, you're missing years of compound growth. Someone else, with less knowledge but more courage, puts $100 a month into a simple index fund starting today. They don't know everything. They make it simple. They automate it and forget about it. 10 years later, they have $35,000 or more depending on returns. You finally feel ready to start and you have nothing. You gained knowledge but lost a decade of growth. Was that trade worth it? The fear underlying this habit is the fear of doing it wrong, of making mistakes, of wasting money or time on an approach that isn't optimal. But here's the truth. You're going to make mistakes regardless. Everyone does. Mistakes are how we learn. The question isn't whether you'll make mistakes, it's whether you'll make them while moving forward or avoid them by not moving at all. And avoiding mistakes by not starting isn't wisdom. It's a guarantee that you'll never achieve what you want. You can't learn to swim by reading about swimming. You have to get in the water. You can't learn to build a business by reading business books. You have to actually start a business. You can't learn to invest by studying investment theory. You have to put money at risk and watch what happens. The learning comes from doing, and the sooner you start doing, even imperfectly, the sooner you start learning and growing. There's a concept in the startup world called the minimum viable product. Instead of spending years building a perfect product before launching, you build the simplest possible version that delivers core value. You put it in front of customers immediately, and you iterate based on their feedback. This approach has created billion-dollar companies that never would have existed if their founders waited for perfection. The same principle applies to every area of your financial life. What's the minimum viable version of your goal? What's the simplest way you could start today with what you have? If you want to start a business, what could you offer right now with no investment beyond your time? If you want to invest, what's the smallest amount you could put into the simplest investment vehicle to get started? If you want to improve your skills, what free resources could you use to start learning today? If you want to get healthier, what could you do right now with no equipment or expense? The answer is always that there's something you can do today, something imperfect but real, something that moves you forward however slightly. And that imperfect action today is worth more than perfect action someday, because someday tends to become never. Breaking this habit requires a fundamental shift in mindset from perfectionism to progressivism. You have to become comfortable with doing things badly at first, with learning in public, with making mistakes and adjusting. You have to value momentum over perfection, progress over polish. You have to recognize that done is better than perfect, that started is better than planned. This doesn't mean you should be reckless or stupid. You should still think through major decisions, do basic research, understand what you're getting into. But there's a huge difference between reasonable preparation and endless preparation that never leads to action. You need to develop the discernment to know when you know enough to start and when you're just procrastinating behind the mask of preparation. Here's a useful rule of thumb. If you can start with minimal risk, start immediately even if you feel unprepared. If the downside of starting is just that you might waste some time or learn what doesn't work, that's not actually a downside, that's education. But if you can start only with significant risk that could seriously harm your financial situation or well-being, then yes, prepare more thoroughly. Learn to distinguish between these scenarios. Starting a side hustle with nothing but time invested? Low risk, start now. Quitting your job to pursue a business with no income and no safety net. High risk, prepare more. Putting a small amount in a diversified index fund? Low risk, start now. Putting your life savings into a single speculative stock. High risk, learn more first. The wealthy understand this principle deeply. They bias toward action. They're comfortable with imperfection. They know that you can't steer a parked car, that you need to be in motion to adjust direction. They start things before they feel ready, they figure it out as they go, and they course correct based on results, rather than trying to plan for every contingency in advance. Meanwhile, broke people wait for perfect conditions that never come, opportunities that never materialize, the right moment that's always just around the corner, but somehow never arrives. They're still in the same place years later, still dreaming, still planning, still waiting, having missed every opportunity that imperfect action would have created. The seventh and final habit that's keeping you broke is undervaluing your knowledge and giving it away for free. This one is particularly pernicious because it's often disguised as generosity, humility, or being helpful. We freely share our expertise, our insights, our solutions, our time, our experience with anyone who asks, because we want to be nice, we want to be seen as generous and knowledgeable, we want to help people. And there's nothing wrong with genuine generosity. But here's what often happens. People who would happily pay for the value you provide are getting it for free, and you're training the market that your knowledge has no price. You're creating a dynamic where your most valuable asset, what you know and what you can do, is treated as worthless. And that keeps you broke while the people you're freely helping build their own wealth with the knowledge you gave them. Think about it this way. You've spent years, maybe decades, developing expertise in your field. You've invested time, money, effort, probably made mistakes and learned expensive lessons. You've accumulated knowledge that has genuine value, that can solve problems for others, that can save them time or money or frustration. That knowledge is an asset. It's valuable. It took resources to acquire, and it has the power to generate returns. But when someone asks for your advice, for your help solving a problem in your area of expertise, you give it freely without even thinking about it. You spend an hour on a call walking them through something that would have taken you years to figure out on your own. You write detailed emails explaining solutions to complex problems. You review their work, give feedback, share your insights, all for free because you're helpful and knowledgeable and you want to be seen as generous. Meanwhile, consultants in your same field are charging hundreds or thousands of dollars for the exact same advice you just gave away. The person you helped would have happily paid for that value. They might have even respected your expertise more if they'd paid for it, because we tend to value what we pay for more than what we get for free. But because you gave it away, they got the value without the exchange, and you got the satisfaction of being helpful, but no compensation for your time and expertise. And this pattern repeats over and over, keeping you broke while making others successful. Now, I'm not saying you should never help anyone or that every interaction must be transactional. Genuine relationships include mutual support and freely given help. There's a place for mentorship, for paying it forward, for generosity without expectation of return. But you need to be conscious and intentional about when you're being generous and when you're being exploited. You need to distinguish between people who genuinely need help and can't pay from people who can afford to pay, but would rather get it for free. You need to value your own expertise enough to charge for it in appropriate contexts. Here's a framework. Friends, family, people genuinely in need who you want to help out of relationship or charity. Help them freely and generously. But strangers, acquaintances, businesses, people who are making money from what you provide, they should pay. Your knowledge is a product. You've invested in creating it. It has value. You should be compensated for providing it in professional contexts. If someone approaches you for consulting, for advice, for your expertise, you should have a rate. If they balk at the idea of paying, they don't actually value what you have to offer. They just want to take without giving. Those aren't people you need to help. Let them go figure it out on their own or find someone else willing to give away what they should be selling. There's a related issue here. We often undercharge for our services because we don't recognize their value or because we feel guilty asking for what we're worth. We look at what we do and think it's easy or obvious because we've been doing it for years. We forget that it's only easy for us because of all the time and effort we invested in getting good at it. To someone without our expertise, what we do is difficult, valuable, worth paying for, but because it feels easy to us, we charge far less than the value we provide, or we don't charge at all. Wealthy people understand the value of their knowledge, and they charge accordingly. They don't undercut themselves. They don't apologize for their rates. They know that their expertise is valuable and that people who truly want it will pay for it. They're comfortable letting people who won't pay walk away. They understand that there's a market for what they know, and they position themselves appropriately in that market. Breaking this habit requires developing a healthy relationship with money and value. You need to recognize that being paid for your expertise isn't greedy or wrong. It's a fair exchange. You provide value, you receive compensation. That's how economies work. That's how respect is built. That's how you create sustainability in your work. Giving away what you should be selling makes it impossible to build wealth because you're constantly depleting your most valuable resource, your time and knowledge, without replenishing it. You also need to get comfortable having conversations about money. When someone asks for your help in your area of expertise, you need to be able to say clearly and without apologizing, "I'd be happy to help. My rate for consulting is X per hour," or "I offer this service for Y." Would you like to move forward? Most people will understand and respect this. Some will pay happily because they value what you offer. Some will decide it's not worth it to them, and that's fine. You've just filtered out people who don't value your expertise enough to compensate you for it. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. Your time is your life. Every hour you spend giving away your expertise for free is an hour you can't spend earning income, building your own projects, or resting and recharging. You have a limited number of hours. You need to be strategic about how they're deployed. And while some hours should definitely be invested in relationships and genuine generosity, most of your working hours should be generating income or building assets. Otherwise, you'll stay broke no matter how knowledgeable or skilled you become. There's also a confidence component here. Many people give away their expertise because they don't feel confident charging for it. They worry they're not good enough, that people won't pay, that they'll be rejected or judged. But here's the thing. The market determines value, not your self-assessment. If people are willing to pay for what you offer, then it's valuable by definition. And you won't know if they're willing to pay unless you ask. Start with a reasonable rate based on what others in your field charge. Put it out there. See what happens. You might be surprised by how many people are happy to pay for expertise they would have gotten for free before. And even if some people say no, that's okay. You're building a practice of valuing yourself and your knowledge, and that practice will compound over time into greater financial success. The path from broke to prosperous isn't built on grand gestures or dramatic changes alone. It's built on dozens of small shifts in how we think about and interact with money. It's built on recognizing the hidden costs of habits that seem virtuous but are actually costly. It's built on being willing to challenge what we've always believed and do things differently than everyone around us. And each of these 7 habits, saving too conservatively, buying things just because they're on sale, trying to look successful before you are, staying loyal to companies that aren't loyal to you, doing everything yourself to save money, waiting for perfect conditions before starting, and undervaluing your knowledge, is costing you more than you probably realize. Together, they create a comprehensive trap that keeps intelligent, hard-working people broke despite their best intentions. But awareness is the first step toward change. Now that you see these patterns, you can start to interrupt them. You can make different choices. You can redirect your energy and resources toward approaches that actually build wealth, rather than ones that merely feel responsible while keeping you stuck. So we've just walked through 7 habits that might seem like responsible choices on the surface, but are actually sabotaging your financial future. These aren't the obvious mistakes people make with money. They're subtle traps disguised as wisdom, patterns of behavior that society reinforces even though they lead to scarcity rather than abundance. Saving too conservatively might feel safe, but it's a guaranteed way to lose purchasing power over time while missing opportunities for real growth. Buying things just because they're on sale feels like smart shopping, but it's really just spending money on things you don't need and wouldn't buy otherwise, leaving you with clutter instead of capital. Trying to look successful before you actually are might earn you fleeting social approval, but it drains resources that should be building your foundation and traps you in a cycle of image management that leads nowhere. Staying loyal to companies that aren't loyal to you costs you thousands of dollars every year in overpayments for services, while those companies save their best deals for new customers and take your continued business for granted. Doing everything yourself to save small amounts of money wastes your most valuable resource, your time, preventing you from focusing on high-value activities that could actually increase your income and change your trajectory. Waiting until you can afford to do things perfectly guarantees you'll never start, missing years or decades of learning, growth, and compound returns, while perfect conditions that never existed continue to not exist. And undervaluing your knowledge by giving it away for free trains the market to treat your expertise as worthless, while consultants with no more knowledge than you charge appropriately and build wealth from the same information you're sharing for nothing. Each of these habits seems reasonable in isolation. That's why they're so dangerous. They pass under the radar of our critical thinking because they're socially acceptable, even praised. But when you add up their cumulative cost over years and decades, you realize they represent the difference between prosperity and perpetual struggle. The good news is that you can change these patterns starting today. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need to wait for better circumstances. You just need awareness and a willingness to act differently than you have before. Start evaluating your saving strategy with an eye towards strategic investment rather than just conservative accumulation. Before buying anything on sale, ask yourself if you would buy it at full price and whether you actually need it. Begin building real wealth quietly rather than spending money to project an image of success. Take a day to audit your recurring expenses and shop for better deals on insurance, phone service, internet, and subscriptions. Identify tasks you're doing yourself that would be better outsourced so you can focus on higher value activities. Start something today, imperfectly and small, rather than waiting for perfect conditions that will never come. And begin valuing your expertise appropriately, charging for your knowledge in professional contexts rather than giving it all away. These aren't complicated changes. They don't require advanced degrees or special circumstances. They just require thinking differently about money and making choices that align with actual wealth building rather than the appearance of financial responsibility. And here's what you'll find as you implement these shifts. Your financial situation will begin to change, maybe slowly at first, but with accelerating momentum as these new patterns compound over time. Money that was being wasted will be redirected toward investments and opportunities. Time that was being spent on low-value tasks will be reclaimed for activities that actually move the needle. Income will start to increase as you value yourself appropriately. Options will expand as you build a real foundation rather than just an impressive facade. And perhaps most importantly, you'll develop a different relationship with money itself, seeing it not as something scarce that must be hoarded and protected at all costs, but as a tool that should be deployed strategically to create the life you actually want. This is how you go from broke to building wealth, not through dramatic windfalls or lucky breaks, though those are nice when they happen, but through consistent application of principles that actually work, through being willing to think differently than the crowd, through valuing yourself and your resources appropriately, and through making choices that serve your actual goals, rather than just making you feel temporarily virtuous while keeping you permanently stuck. Before I close out, I want to make sure you're getting the most out of content like this. If this video has given you new perspectives or challenged you to think differently about your financial habits, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel. It genuinely helps this message reach more people who need to hear it, and it ensures you won't miss future videos that could be just as valuable for your journey. Hit that like button if this resonated with you. It tells me what content is most helpful and encourages me to create more like this. And turn on notifications so you're alerted when new videos drop. Every week we're exploring different aspects of wisdom, success, and living a life that's not just busy, but meaningful. I'm committed to bringing you insights that challenge conventional thinking and help you break free from patterns that don't serve you. And here's something important. If this video helped you or made you think differently, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. We all have friends or family members who are stuck in these patterns, working hard but never getting ahead, doing everything they've been told to do but not seeing the results they deserve. This video might be exactly what they need to see things differently and start making changes that actually matter. Sometimes the most valuable thing we can do for people we care about is share knowledge that could change their trajectory. Finally, I want to leave you with a blessing. May you have the wisdom to see what's truly valuable and what only appears to be. May you have the courage to make choices that serve your future rather than just your present comfort or your image. May you develop a healthy relationship with money, seeing it as a tool for creating good in your life and the lives of others, rather than as a measure of your worth or a source of endless anxiety. May you value yourself and your gifts appropriately, neither underestimating what you have to offer nor overestimating your current position. May you have the patience to build wealth slowly and sustainably, rather than seeking shortcuts or appearances. May you be blessed with discernment to know when to save and when to invest, when to do things yourself and when to delegate, when to be generous and when to charge appropriately. And may you experience true prosperity, not just in your bank account, but in your relationships, your purpose, your peace of mind, and your ability to create positive impact in the world. Remember, wealth isn't just about having money. It's about having options, having freedom, having the resources to pursue what matters and to help others along the way. These 7 habits we've discussed today are keeping you from that kind of wealth. But now that you see them clearly, you have the power to choose differently. Make that choice. Start today. Your future self will thank you for it. Until next time, be wise, be intentional, and be blessed.